Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars The Black Series action figure review. Today we're taking a look at a long overdue addition to the Black Series line. This is Clone Captain Rex in his Phase 1 armour as depicted in the flashback scenes of Ahsoka Episode 5. This is for the most part a really cool figure, however I'm not going to overhype this one as being an absolutely perfect release because it's not. A lot of this does boil down to personal preference, but there are some things that I would have done differently with this figure, at least from a paint applications perspective. From a sculpt and articulation standpoint, this figure is absolutely fantastic, and like I said, it's a long overdue addition to the Black Series line. Hopefully with this release, a vintage collection 3 3/4 inch version is not far behind. As far as I'm aware, I don't think we've seen a realistic interpretation of Rex in his Phase 1 armour in the vintage collection or any other 3 3/4 inch action figure line, so hopefully that figure is not too far off. But for the most part, like I said, this one is a solid release, really nice to have in the collection and a real treat to finally have in hand. So without further ado, let's dive into this review. We'll kick things off as always by taking a look at the packaging that Rex comes in, and then we'll dive into the details of the figure. So as you can see, pretty standard stuff in terms of Black Series packaging. We do of course have the colour band around the front of the box indicating the media that the character appears in. We have the name of the character and the number in the series on the side of the box, and of course that window where the figure would sit with the Black Series logo just at the top. And then down the spine of the box we get this really nice mural image of Rex as he appears in the Ahsoka series. This is a really cool image, absolutely love that. And that does appear on the back of the box as well, as you can see, with a brief description of the character, the colour band, number and name of the series once again. So like I said, pretty standard stuff, nothing really to write home about. As I've said before, once you've seen one Black Series box, you've pretty much seen them all, but the figure inside is pretty nice. So let's dive in and take a look at Clone Captain Rex. So here is Captain Rex, free of his plastic prison and ready for combat. And like I said, this is a real joy to have in hand. A great figure for the most part, and a real joy to finally see brought to life in the Black Series. Like I said, it's a long overdue edition, and quite honestly, I'm sort of fatigued at this point by Captain Rex's Phase 2 appearance. It feels like every figure we've had of Rex in recent memory has been based on his Phase 2 armour, so to finally have a Phase 1 version back in circulation is a really nice, refreshing change of pace. And the figure is really nice in its own right. It's not without its flaws. Like I said at the start of the review, there are a few things that I would have done differently with this one if I were Hasbro, but that does boil down to personal preference. As I've said in previous reviews, I'm a huge advocate for weathering, and I feel like clone troopers in particular need that little bit of battle damage and wear and tear to really take them to the next level, and this figure definitely lacks in that regard. He's very clean, very shiny, and looks a little bit toy-like due to the lack of weathering. The depth and realism just isn't there for me, and that's a real letdown. The figure itself, like I said, sculpt-wise, looks epic, but that paint application in terms of weathering would have really gone a long way to take this one to that next level and really make it hands down one of the best figures of the year, because it is of course based on that new Clone Trooper body sculpt. So like I said, the overall look of the figure from a sculpt, engineering and proportion point of view is absolutely top tier, but he's just too clean. He needed some carbon scoring, he needed some scratches on the stripes, he needed some battle damage to make it look like he's been a part of the Clone Wars, especially considering the fact that this figure is based on his appearance in those flashback scenes in Ahsoka, where he's in the midst of the Battle of Teth, and as such he'd be covered in dust, he'd have some battle damage, and that's just not reflected on this figure, and that's a real shame in my opinion. Like I said, that does boil down to personal preference. If you're a fan of the clean look, that's fine. I just think it needed that little bit of something extra. With regards to accessories, this figure is packed with 2 blaster pistols, which as you can see are based on the weapons he uses in the Clone Wars animated series. They're a decent sculpt, not a great deal going on in terms of paint applications, but they can be stored in the holsters on Rex's belt. He also features a removable shoulder pauldron, which when you remove the helmet becomes very loose, and as such I may at some point have to take a dab of super glue and just lock that one down into place, because once that helmet is removed, it does become very, very loose and wobbly, and quite honestly, grinds my gears a little bit. So I'm definitely going to have to fix that in place. And then, as I said, yeah, he does come with the removable helmet as well. So we'll get a look at the portrait underneath the helmet in just a little bit. When it comes to articulation, if you've picked up the 2023 Phase 1 Clone Trooper or any Clone Trooper figure in the Black Series since, then you know what to expect when it comes to articulation. He features a ball joint at the head, and as such we have a ball joint at the base of the head and the bottom of the neck, so there's a really nice fluid range of movement going on there. He can look up, down and all around. We have butterfly joints at the shoulders, and the shoulder plates once again are on a loop system, so they're independent of the arm and don't hinder any of that articulation. We have hinges at the elbows and hinges at the wrist, a nice fluid ball joint at the torso, and again that overlay, that armor overlay there is a separate piece, so again doesn't interfere with the articulation. We have a plastic camer on this one, which again is something that slightly bothers me about this figure. Not because I've got any issue with the plastic camer, but I just wish Hasbro would make their mind up and be consistent in what they put on these Clone Trooper figures. Commander Bakara, for example, recently had a soft goods camer, and like I said, just for the sake of consistency, I wish that Hasbro would stick to one or the other. I don't have a personal preference, this looks fine, and what I'm really happy about is that despite being plastic, the articulation in the legs is not hindered. We've still got a nice wide stance available from the ball jointed hips. We have swivel cuts at the upper thigh, hinges in the knees with separately sculpted knee pads once again, and hinges and rockers at the ankles. So great articulation. Like I said, can't complain about that too much at all. And before I forget, there is a swivel at the bicep as well. So articulation wise, overall sculpt, absolutely fantastic on this figure, and I really can't complain about that too much. It's just the lack of weathering that really knocks this one down a few pegs in my opinion, but again, that is personal preference. As I mentioned, the helmet is also removable, as you can see, and underneath we have this really nice portrait of Captain Rex, obviously based on Tamura Morrison, and as such the likeness is absolutely fantastic. That photoreal face printing technology really goes a long way to add depth and realism to the head sculpt at least, and as you can see the hair is painted really nicely as well. I'd go as far as to say that this is better than the Phase 2 Rex we got in the Black Series back in 2018. The head sculpt just looks that little bit better in my opinion, the detail is more prevalent, and it's more consistent with other Clone Troopers that have been released in the Black Series recently. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Like I said, once you do remove the helmet, the shoulder pauldron does become a little bit loose, so just be aware of that if you pick this figure up for yourself. Like I said, I'm going to fix that in place I think with a bit of glue, just to keep it down, keep it in place. But yeah, the head sculpt, absolutely fantastic on this figure, and definitely one of the selling points for me personally. So that pretty much concludes this review on Clone Captain Rex from the Black Series 6-inch line. Once again, a long overdue addition to the line itself, a great figure in its own right. Don't let me put you off when I complain about the lack of weathering, because again, that is personal preference, but it's just something that I feel was missing from the figure and would have elevated it so much. In its own right though, this is a great addition to the line. Really cool look for the character. That head sculpt once again is fantastic. The Phase 1 helmet is iconic, and one thing I did fail to point out during the review is the fact that the rangefinder is actually posable, and the figure also features 2 trigger fingers, so he can hold both blasters at the same time, which is always a good thing. So like I said, for the most part, a great figure, really cool addition to the collection, and a must-have for any Clone Wars display. And if you'd like to purchase this figure for yourself, you know there is a link down below in the video description which will take you, as always, to staractionfigures.co.uk. At the time of filming this review, Rex is in stock and available to buy, and I wouldn't sleep on this one because he's a popular character, probably not going to stick around for very long, and once you pick him up, I don't think you'll regret it. So that's going to do it for this review. Thanks for tuning in. Until my next one, as always, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.